How's it going, YouTube? Back here with another video. In my last video, I walked around the car and I asked if anybody had any questions or comments about the car. Again, this is my 1986 Monte Carlo. One of the questions I got that I thought was a kind of a cool idea was a small video about sunroofs, which you can see right here. My car has a aftermarket sunroof. I believe this is from an old Lincoln, and I think these sunroofs are pretty popular in the lowrider community to put in aftermarket on all kinds of different kinds of cars. So this is a 42-inch moonroof off an old school Lincoln, and we put this in the car probably about 10 years ago, and I have not had any problems since the installation. There are a couple different kinds of sunroofs and moonroofs and that kind of stuff. I'm not an expert in sunroofs or moonroofs, but I will tell you this. A lot of people like to put these old Lincoln and Cadillac sunroofs in their car, irrespective of what kind of car they have. And then there's some of the newer ones that are also glass. This is a glass moonroof. Some people like to put the newer aftermarket ones. Some of those will go above the roof, and some of them actually go into the roof. Underneath in between the roof and the headliner. My preference personally are the ones that actually stay inside the car and go in between the headliner and the roof. Those are probably the best option for those of you with the lowrider. If you have hydraulics in your car is going to be pretty bouncy even when you're not hitting switches. And if you have your glass kind of, I'm sure you've seen the ones where the glass sits up like this over the roof, that's going to be bouncing around. And I think the glass is probably tempered glass and you may not have a problem. I would just be worried if there was some kind of loose piece of glass bouncing up and down when I'm driving around or even when I'm hitting switches. So if you have a lowrider and you're going to hit your switches, it's best to have a sunroof or a moonroof that goes in between the roof and the headliner. Some things to consider when you put a sunroof in is that if it's not done correctly or even just over time, you can get leaks. So when you wash your car, your sunroof or moonroof can start leaking, which can get inside the car and create problems there. That could be from a bad seal. There's weather stripping that goes around this, and then there's drainage tubes that drain out because it's gonna rain or snow around your area, and then there's going to be water that gathers up, and that sunroof has to be able to drain those out. So there's drainage tubes, and sometimes those get clogged if you're in an area that has a lot of vegetation like leaves or whatever the case might be, and then it gets clogged, and then you're going to start having problems with leaking with your moonroof or sunroof. So make sure that whoever you have put your sunroof in, they know what they're doing. They've had experience with it, and they'll back their work up, because otherwise you're just basically creating a liability. Anytime you do something aftermarket to your car, you run the risk of the car not ever operating the way that it should. So if you put a sunroof in, you're creating a hole in your roof that has the possibility to leak. The same thing is if you have a convertible, right? There's more problems with having a convertible than a hardtop because there's openings that can leak even if it's a stock convertible, right? So just be aware that if you're gonna put a sunroof in your car, make sure it's professionally done and make sure that you trust the person that's putting it in. This sunroof was actually put in before the car was ever painted, so I had the foresight during the building process to know that I wanted a sunroof. So we went ahead and put that in when the car was stripped down to bare metal. And I was able to source this sunroof through Hilo Hydraulics. Mondo Nunez over at Hilo Hydraulics in El Paso, Texas, found the sunroof, but we were missing this ring right here. We were missing this metal part, and I was able to source that in Los Angeles County. I live in Orange County. That became a problem because these are not just around. I went to several sunroof places and they were assuming I had a newer sunroof, like a new model or a new manufactured model. And I told them, oh no, it's off an old Lincoln. And they're like, we don't have that. So I had to fish this out in Los Angeles County from a guy that specializes in sunroofs, and I got the last one that he had in stock. So these are becoming harder and harder to find parts for, which I think is another reason why a lot of people in low riding like these sunroofs, because they're not as common as they used to be, let's say back in the 90s. Also keep in mind that, again, with the different kinds of sunroofs, these old ones, some of them have like a gold tint or a silver tint on them. Some people care about that. I personally don't care if they're gold or silver, but there is a tint involved with some of these, and some people like the gold or the silver one better. There's also sunroofs and moonroofs that are not glass, but they're actually metal. Those are kind of rare, and a lot of people like to put those in because you could finish the patterns without the breakup because of the glass. So sometimes people like to put in the metal sunroofs because the patterns can continue on the sunroof when the sunroof is closed. But again, those are kind of hard to find. I had one of those on the '79 Monte Carlo that I used to own, and a lot of people asked me if they could buy the sunroof off the car, and they were offering me you know, like $3,000 or $4,000 just for the sunroof. So keep in mind that if you're gonna put a sunroof in, that it requires maintenance, and even though the maintenance is not a big deal, just make sure you maintain your sunroof. On the next shot, I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it from the inside. That way you guys can see what it looks like from the inside and what the way the headliner ring looks. And then I'll also do a shot of how this looks open. Okay, here's a shot of the sunroof open. As you can see, the glass part of the sunroof slides into the roof, in between the roof and the headliner. And the part of the sunroof that is not really visible on the roof is still painted the same color as the car, although you can't really tell because it doesn't have pattern, so it looks like it's a different color, but it actually is close to the same color. This is basically what you want to see when you do a custom sunroof. If you have these old school ones, you're going to have to paint the inside of the sunroof. On the newer ones, they're usually like black or some kind of stock color, but these old school ones, you have to paint them. So keep that in mind if you want one of these old 42 or 44 inch moonroofs from Lincoln's. You're gonna have to paint them. One of the things that I also want to mention, when you put in a sunroof into your car, if you're kind of tall, meaning that you're like, let's say 5'10" or taller, you're gonna lose headroom on the inside, because the headliner has to drop about an inch and a half in order to compensate for the movement of the glass part of the sunroof. So keep in mind, if you're kind of tall or 5'10" or even taller, at least on the G body, I'm 5'10", and on the G body, if I don't really kind of like hunker down in the seat, the top of my head will touch the headliner. So I have to be kind of in a bad posture when I'm sitting down in order to fit in the car comfortably, because the headliner has dropped down about an inch and a half. So keep that in mind. If you want a sunroof, you're going to lose a little bit of headroom in your car. I can only speak for the G body, but if I assume that it's the same in a Cadillac. I don't know if there's much more headroom in a Cadillac or a Lincoln or any kind of other car that you might turn into a lowrider. But if you do not have a sunroof in at this point in time and you decide to put one in and your head is almost touching the headliner, it's almost a guarantee that your headliner will be literally touching the top of your head, and you may not like that. And even though you might have a badass sunroof, the drawback is going to be that the headliner is on top of your head, and you may not like that. So keep that in mind, that if you're already kind of almost touching the headliner, it's going to drop down and you may not like it. That's why a lot of the times when you see cars, there'll be like a little an indentation on like where your head is. It's like it's concave up this way, and that's to compensate for your head. So you lose that when you put a sunroof in. So keep that in mind. The next shot I'm going to do is going to be from the inside, so you can see the way the sunroof looks from the inside and the way that the bezel looks and the different parts on the inside. All right, so we're on the inside of the car now. As you can see, there's three parts to the sunroof. The glass part, there's the bezel, and then there's the slider that when you don't want the sun to come in, you pull it shut, right? So those are the three parts on the inside to the sunroof. As you can see, it's a big sunroof, so it's really nice when you're driving at night or during the daytime. You get the air that comes in, and it alleviates a little bit of the head room problem, even though your head will probably be like right here. So as you can see, this is kind of where I'm talking about, where you lose some inches there. Again, if you're kind of tall, maybe the sunroof is not for you. If you don't care, do it anyways. It looks great. That's why I did it. I like sunroofs no matter what. But this particular kind of sunroof takes up quite a bit of headspace off of your headliner, so just be aware of that. Again, this has a slight tint, a stock factory tint. It actually had a darker tint on there, but I took it off. The glass needs to be cleaned a little bit, but that's basically it on the inside. If you're gonna do an old school sunroof like this, you're gonna have to find some of this. It's like a retaining, it's a flexible retaining clip. I don't know what the actual official terminology is for it, but this is what keeps, because you got to wrap the headliner, over like this, and if you don't have this in, it just looks ugly. So you have to find this flexible retaining clip. It's not really a clip, but that's just what I'm calling it, so that you make sure your headliner doesn't start to come off. That's one of the things about these older sunroofs, is that you have to find that, and it's not hard to find, but it's also not the easiest thing to find, and depending on where you live, that might be a problem for you. Other than that, the sunroof, I think, it makes your car look better most of the time. It's not for everybody, but I enjoy having a sunroof. I've always liked the way sunroofs look in G bodies. This is a Monte Carlo again. And for whatever reason, GMC didn't put that many sunroofs into their G bodies. I don't think that it was a common aftermarket feature in terms of aftermarket, or excuse me, stock from the factory. I think there are only a handful of instances where I've seen a stock sunroof in a G body, but normally what you saw is T-tops on the G bodies, and even those are not very common. So a lot of people like to put in sunroofs. So if you're thinking about it, just think about the things that I told you. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll key the car to the, I have this car set up to where I can only open the sunroof if I turn on the ignition, so you're gonna hear noise from the radiator fan. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up so you can see it open up. So that's really it. If you're considering a sunroof, also make sure that to keep the motor exercise, the motor that runs the actual sunroof, make sure you're opening and closing your sunroof on a regular basis to make sure that the motor doesn't seize up or freeze up, because if you have a problem with your motor, your sunroof can get stuck open or it can get stuck closed, and obviously that's a problem. Another thing that I would consider is on these old sunroofs, you're not going to get the same kind of function you would on a newer sunroof, meaning this sunroof only goes open and closed, right? That's the only function. On some of the newer ones, you could actually just crack it open. It'll like pop up, like on my truck. It's like that, where it has open, close, and then you could like pop it up just to like let air in. These old school Lincoln 42 and 44 inch sunroofs don't have that option. It's only close and open, and that's it. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for something that's more functional in terms of something like a new sunroof that you would see in a newer car, definitely go for an aftermarket brand new sunroof that you could buy at a place that installs sunroofs. They're gonna have those all day long. But personally, if I was you, I would have a sunroof that goes inside the body panel in between the roof and the headliner. That's what I think is the best. If you like, you usually see them on like on trucks where they have the aftermarket sunroof where it comes like that. We talked about that earlier. If you like that, that's fine. But I don't like the idea of it bouncing back here, especially with the car's hydraulics. On some of those like drag racing trucks and stuff like that, it won't matter. But if you have a car's hydraulics, it's gonna be bouncing around. And I would just hate for it to somehow come loose and then you lose it on the street and then it breaks. And then you have to buy new glass, and then for a while you're gonna have just an open sunroof that someone can break into very easy into your car. So just keep that in mind. Thank you for the person that submitted that question. I didn't think that I could talk this long about a sunroof. I could probably go longer, but I'm in a new location, so I had to move my car, so I'm not in the most ideal shooting location right now. I just wanted to make this video before too much time passed about my car. Again, if any of you have any questions about this car, my 1986 Monte Carlo base model, it's a full show car. You can see my other video. I'll link it up here on the right side if you want to see the original video where I asked people to submit comments, ask questions. Again, that still stands on this video. If you have any questions about anything with the car, if you want to know more about something, as you can see, the car it's full custom. It's not just a regular street car, it's a full show car. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, talk about parts of the build. What I plan to do is answer some questions from the original video that people asked, and then I had some people contact me privately asking some questions that were not appearing in the comment section. So the next few things I'm going to do is talk about hydraulics, interior, paint, wheels, frame, undercarriage, exhaust, that kind of stuff. So until the next video, have a good one.